essentially.
Yeah, exactly. We have a road here on the top of the rampart as well, so it was easy to get around.
Yeah.
And across the gates there have, of course, been bridges, so you can move your forces very quickly around the entire fortresses in case of a battle.
We can now reveal what this impressive fortification would have looked like from the outside. Surrounded by a 22-foot-tall wooden palisade of oak, it was guarded by the king's elite warriors.
We believe that there have lived about 400 or 500 warriors in here, and for the families of some of the warriors have probably been put out there. It ended up not just being a military base, but some kind of a local society.
The ring fortresses served as regional centers of control, as places where taxes could be collected, and as symbols of the power of Harold Bluetooth.
Presumably there must have been farmers provisioning the soldiers with food.
The idea was that the king with all his men travel from stronghold to stronghold. When they run out of stuff, they continue to the next one.
So the king was literally processing around the countryside, consuming his taxes, just literally eating his taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Building these fortresses was a massive drain on resources. Trelleborg alone would have taken hundreds of laborers over 6 years to build, and used more than 9,000 oak trees in its construction.
Enormous amounts of work lying here. There must have been 1,000 people working here at least.
The fort wall was a 440-foot diameter ring of earth, 58 feet thick by 23 feet high. It had a 13-foot deep ditch filled with sharpened stakes. On top of this sat a palisade and roadway. 4 entrance gates led into the fort and converged at its center, creating a bold architectural symbol of Harold's Christianity, a gigantic cross.
There were only one person who could see it, and that's actually God up in the sky.
At one of Trelleborg's sister fortresses of Furkat, Jonathan Foyle investigates what it was like to live within these giant structures.
I'm at the Furkat ring fort, and it's identical to the Trelleborg one. You've got that same circular earthwork with north, south, east, west entrances. It's like they've been turned out with a giant pastry cutter on the landscape.
Jonathan wants to uncover what these structures and the artifacts discovered within them tell us about the lost world of Harold Bluetooth. With him is Viking expert Elsa Rosedal.
You must have learned from the objects, actually the human dimension, how those buildings were used. What did they tell you?
This uniformity of plan suggested that it was purely military use, all of it, but through the distribution of the objects found, you could see that even if the houses were all the same in layout, and they had very different functions, these were strange structures which appeared in a very particular political situation. And they were built, and there's nothing like it anywhere. We have looked at it all over the world.
From the discoveries at Furkat, archaeologists have been able to reconstruct what the longhouses that once stood here looked like. 100 feet long by 26 feet wide and supported by more than 50 slanted bow posts, the longhouses were the focal point of life. By building a reconstruction here at Furkat, archaeologists have realized that longhouses required just as much effort and expertise to construct as the Viking longships. But questions still remain about the reasons for their unique design.
Tantalizingly on the edge of this Viking world, and the overwhelming sense is the wood. It surrounds you. It's like a wooden tent almost, and all you can see is wood or darkness.
It is solid oak, all of it. All the posts are dug into the ground. From there. They were masters in everything concerned with wood, as we also know from the ships.
Why is the wall curved?
Yeah, there are many suggestions, and one of them is, of course, the ship idea, which is not very likely. But then it could have been that it would provide more space around the fireplace.
Inside it, Jonathan gets a flavor of what life was like in these great halls.
I don't know if it's just me, but I felt drawn to be as close to the fire as possible. Does that reflect how it was used in the past?
One of the great things in the great halls was performances of poetry. There were also all sorts of acrobats and things.
Reconstructing the design of the fortress as it would have been during Harold Bluetooth's reign, we can see Firkat as a unique monumental structure designed for war. But it was also a centerpiece for the working community and a focus for Viking society during peacetime. Yet the fortresses didn't last, barely outliving the man who ordered their construction. Rebellious pagan Vikings, led by his own son, rose up against Harold and laid siege to his holy fortresses.
There was a revolt led by his son, Sven Forkbeard, and he was killed. After that revolt, the new regime wouldn't have anything to do with it. They were abandoned. So it's in fact failures. But splendid failures.
You would be the last person I would expect to call this a failure with your deep involvement and love for it.
Jonathan's discoveries at Firkat reveal not only a picture of life within these fortified outposts, but also a picture of the Viking world as it changed from pagan tribes to Christian kingdoms. In just over 2.5 centuries, Viking civilization had come a long way.
They were uniquely successful in their ability, first of all, to raid and then to colonize and settle right across the North Atlantic.
This success meant Harold's descendants ruled an empire that included England, Norway, and Denmark, and Vikings would eventually conquer and settle all over Europe and far beyond. Our investigators have discovered that the Viking influence, begun with the violence of the raiding parties and strengthened by trade, was only made possible by the Viking skill and mastery of the sea. Following a trail of clues, they've revealed that the Viking world did not disappear. Instead, the Viking ability to adapt and evolve meant that they eventually molded themselves into a new and versatile culture. Theirs was a civilization constantly on the move, powered by revolutionary technology, governed by wealth, and for 300 years, by the expansion of an empire which is still visible in many cities of today. This was the lost world of the Vikings.